Welcome to Video 9 of Sec 1 Geography, Water Pollution, Causes, Effects, and Management. In the 1970s, the Singapore River was biologically dead, no fish, black water. Industrial waste, pig farm effluent, and open sewage had turned it into one of the most polluted waterways in the region. Today, the same river supports fish, herons, kayaks, and thousands of park visitors every day. What changed? That transformation is what this video is about. Let me give you the full picture of that transformation before we go into the exam content. In the 1970s, hundreds of factories and pig farms discharged waste directly into the Singapore River. Riverside settlements had open sewage. The water turned black, every fish disappeared. It was a biological dead zone. From 1977 to 1987, Singapore ran a decade-long cleanup under direct government instruction. Factories were relocated or forced to treat their discharge. Pig farms were moved away from waterways. Sewage infrastructure was upgraded. The effort was enormous, and it worked. Then, in 2006, PUB launched the ABC Waters program, which took the management of Singapore's waterways to the next level. Not just clean, but actively biodiverse and community integrated. Understanding how pollution works and how it is managed is what this video teaches and what your exam will test. Here is what we are covering today. Chapter 1 covers the sources of water pollution, the distinction between point source and non-point source, and the three pollution types: industrial, agricultural, and domestic. Chapter 2 is eutrophication, the five-step chain, and the single most mark-losing misconception in this entire unit. Chapter 3 is Singapore's ABC Waters program, what it is, its green infrastructure features, the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park named example, and how to evaluate its effectiveness. Chapter 4 ties it all together with the 6-mark evaluate structure. 12 marks across 4 questions. Let's go. 3 mistakes cost students the most marks on this topic. Know them before we start. Mistake 1. Defining point source pollution as pollution that comes from many places. Point source means O1 single, identifiable location, a specific pipe, an outlet, a known source. It is non-point source that comes from many diffuse locations. Mistake 2, and this is the big one. Writing algae use up the oxygen when explaining eutrophication. This is wrong. Algae produce oxygen when they are alive. It is the bacteria decomposing dead algae that consume the oxygen. If you write the algae version, you lose the mark. We will drill this in Chapter 2. Mistake 3. Naming a management strategy without explaining how it works. Singapore uses laws. Alone is 1 mark. The 2nd mark requires the mechanism, how the law or program specifically reduces the pollution. Here are the 4 exam questions this video covers. WAQ1 is 1 mark. Define point source pollution. Must include a single identifiable location and at least 1 example. WAQ2 is 3 marks. Explain how agricultural runoff leads to eutrophication. 3 causal steps, all linked by cause and effect. WAQ3 is 2 marks. Explain 1 way Singapore manages water pollution. Name the strategy and explain the mechanism. The final exam practice is 6 marks. Evaluate how effective Singapore's water pollution management strategies have been, using ABC Waters as a named example. 12 marks total. Everyone is in this video. Chapter 1. Sources of water pollution. Before we can discuss how to manage water pollution, we need to understand where it comes from. There are 2 source categories: point source and non-point source, and 3 main pollution types: industrial, agricultural, and domestic. Let's start with the category distinction because it runs through everything else in this video. Look at the 2-column comparison on screen. Point source pollution comes from a single, identifiable location: a pipe, a drain outlet, a specific factory discharge point. You know exactly where it is coming from. You can test the water at that pipe. You can trace it back to the owner. That makes it relatively easy to detect, monitor, and regulate. Non-point source pollution comes from many diffuse, spread-out locations. It is carried by rainwater runoff across a large area, off farms, roads, construction sites, parks, and car parks, into streams, rivers, and reservoirs. There is no single pipe to test. There is no single owner to fine. You cannot monitor every square meter of farmland or every road surface in Singapore. That makes it much, much harder to manage. This distinction matters enormously in the evaluate question. The key limitation of ALL water pollution management strategies is that non-point source pollution remains hard to address. Keep that in your back pocket for Chapter 4. Industrial pollution is the classic point source. Look at the diagram on screen. Factories discharge wastewater through pipes directly into rivers, canals, or coastal waters. The pollutants are heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and cadmium, industrial chemicals and solvents, and sometimes heated water, which reduces the dissolved oxygen in the receiving water body. The ecosystem effect that is worth knowing is bioaccumulation. Heavy metals dissolve in the water and are absorbed by small fish. When larger fish eat the small fish, the metals accumulate in their tissue. When birds or humans eat those larger fish, the concentration is even higher. Bioaccumulation means that the pollution problem intensifies as you go up the food chain, with humans at the top, potentially ingesting toxic levels of heavy metals from fish that appear visually clean. Management. Strict government regulations requiring factories to treat their wastewater before discharge, regular monitoring at the discharge points, and heavy financial penalties for illegal dumping. Agricultural pollution is the classic non-point source, and it is the trigger for eutrophication, which we cover in depth in Chapter 2. Look at the diagram on screen. When farmers apply fertilizers to their crops, the fertilizer does not all stay on the land. When it rains, rainwater washes excess nitrates and phosphates off the fields as surface runoff, flowing across the land surface and into nearby streams, rivers, and reservoirs. Every rainfall event on farmed land is potentially a pollution event. Key pollutants, nitrates and phosphates from fertilizers, pesticides, and animal waste from livestock farming. Nitrates and phosphates are plant nutrients, which is exactly why they cause the algal bloom problem we look at in the next chapter. Management options, precision farming, applying only the fertilizer that crops actually need, reducing the excess available to runoff, and vegetated buffer strips along waterway edges, which are belts of grass or shrubs that intercept the runoff before it reaches the stream and filter out the nutrients. Domestic pollution is interesting because it is both types, point source and non-point source, depending on the pathway. Look at the diagram on screen. The sewage pathway is point source. Sewage flows through pipes from homes and buildings. When those pipes leak, overflow during heavy rain, or are not properly connected to treatment plants, the sewage enters waterways at a specific, identifiable location. That is, point source. The stormwater pathway is non-point source. During rain, water flowing across roads and car parks picks up oil, litter, food waste, detergents, and other pollutants, and carries them into drains and then into waterways. That comes from everywhere across the entire built environment. That is non-point source. Key pollutants from domestic sources: pathogens, disease, causing bacteria and viruses from sewage, which contaminate drinking water and cause illness, detergents, which reduce dissolved oxygen, and plastics and litter, which physically trap and harm aquatic animals. Management, investment in sewage treatment infrastructure, public education and community cleanup campaigns, and fines for littering or dumping into drains. Chapter 2, Eutrophication. This is the most exam-tested process in this entire video. WAQ2 asks you to explain the eutrophication chain in 3 causal steps. Most students know what eutrophication is, but lose marks because they cannot explain each step causally or because they write the misconception about algae and oxygen. Let's fix both. First, the definition. Look at it on screen. Eutrophication is a process whereby excess nutrients, especially nitrates and phosphates from fertilizers or sewage, enter a water body, triggering excessive algae growth and eventually reducing oxygen levels and killing aquatic life. 3 terms you need to know alongside this definition: Algal bloom, the rapid, excessive growth of algae on the surface of a water body, triggered by a sudden increase in nutrients. Hypoxia, also called oxygen depletion, a severe reduction in dissolved oxygen in a water body. The level drops too low for fish and other aquatic organisms to survive. Dead zone, an area of a water body where oxygen is too low to support most aquatic life. This is the final outcome of severe eutrophication. These three terms, eutrophication, algal bloom, hypoxia, dead zone, are all in your revision note. Make sure you know all of them before the WA. Now the 5-step chain. We will take it in 2 parts. Steps 1 and 2 are on screen now. Step 1, the entry of nutrients. This is WAQ2, Mark 1. Rainfall washes excess nitrates and phosphates from farmland as surface runoff into nearby rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. The water body suddenly receives a large influx of nutrients. This is the trigger. Step 2, the algal bloom. Algae love nutrients. Give them a sudden supply of nitrates and phosphates, and they multiply explosively. A thick mat of algae, the algal bloom, spreads across the water surface. The water turns green. The surface is covered. Now, this is important. At this point in the sequence, the algae are alive, and living algae are photosynthesizing. They are actually producing oxygen. The bloom itself is not the oxygen problem. The oxygen problem comes in steps 3 to 5. Do not forget this. It is the answer to the misconception we address on slide 15. Steps 3, 4, and 5. Look at the 3 boxes on screen. Step 3, sunlight is blocked. The thick algal mat on the surface prevents sunlight from penetrating to the water below. This is WAQ2, Mark 2. Without sunlight, the underwater plants cannot photosynthesize. They stop producing food. They die. Step 4, the bacteria step. This is WAQ2 Mark 3, and the most important step to get right. The dead algae and dead underwater plants produce a large mass of organic matter at the bottom of the water body. Bacteria begin to break this down through decomposition, and the decomposition process consumes large quantities of dissolved oxygen from the water. The oxygen level starts to drop. Step 5, the dead zone. The oxygen depletion reaches a critical point. There is not enough dissolved oxygen left for fish and other aquatic organisms to breathe through their gills. They suffocate. Fish die. Other aquatic creatures die. The water body becomes what scientists call a dead zone, essentially lifeless, or nearly so. Now the misconception. Look at the correction on screen. The wrong version, algae use up the oxygen. This appears constantly in student answers, and it costs the mark every time. Here is why it is wrong. Algae are photosynthesizing organisms. When they are alive, in steps 1 and 2 of the chain, they are taking in carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. Living algae increase the oxygen level, not decrease it. The oxygen crisis happens when the algae die in steps 4 and 5. The dead algae, combined with the dead underwater plants, produce a large mass of organic matter. Bacteria decompose this matter. It is the bacteria, performing decomposition, that consume the dissolved oxygen, not the algae. The correct sequence is algae die. Bacteria decompose the dead matter. Bacteria consume dissolved oxygen, levels drop, fish suffocate. If you write algae use up oxygen, levels drop, fish. If you write algae use up oxygen, you are describing something that does not happen. The mark requires the bacteria mechanism. Bacteria are the key word in WAQ2, Mark 3. Write it explicitly. Your turn. Look at the practice pause on screen. WAQ2, explain how agricultural runoff leads to eutrophication. 3 marks. Write 3 separate causal points. Point 1 explains how the nutrients get into the water body. Point 2 explains what the algal bloom does to underwater plants. Point 3 explains what happens to oxygen levels and why. And this must mention bacteria decomposing dead matter. Do not write algae use up oxygen. Pause the video now. Write your 3-point answer. When you are ready, unpause and I will walk through the model answer. Welcome back. Let's go through the 3-mark model answer. Look at the 3 points on screen. Point 1. Nutrients enter, 1 mark. When farmers apply fertilizers, rainfall washes excess nitrates and phosphates off the fields as surface runoff into nearby rivers and lakes. The key words, fertilizers, rainfall, runoff, nitrates and phosphates, rivers and lakes, all linked causally, 1 mark. Point 2. Algal bloom and plants, 1 mark. The sudden influx of nutrients triggers rapid algae growth. An algal bloom forms on the water surface, blocking sunlight from reaching underwater plants, which then die. Algal bloom, sunlight blocked, plants die. Cause and effect connected by a chain of reasoning, 1 mark. 1 mark. 1-3. Bacteria and oxygen, 1 mark. Bacteria decompose the dead algae in underwater plants, consuming large amounts of dissolved oxygen. Oxygen levels drop severely, fish and other aquatic organisms suffocate and die, turning the water body into a dead zone. Bacteria decompose, consume oxygen, oxygen drops, fish die. Bacteria is the key word, 1 mark. Meno. Notice the rule at the bottom, cause linked to effect earns the mark. A list of steps without causal links earns partial marks at best. And one more time, bacteria cause the oxygen depletion, not the algae. Chapter 3. Singapore's ABC Waters Program. This chapter covers the management strategy that will appear in almost every exam question about Singapore's water pollution response. The ABC Waters Program is the named example you must use in the evaluate question, and in the 2-mark WAQ3 answer. Let's start with what ABC Waters actually is. ABC stands for Active, Beautiful, Clean Waters. The program was launched in 2006 by PUB, Singapore's national water agency. Look at the description on screen. The ABC Waters program transforms Singapore's network of concrete drains, canals, and reservoirs from purely functional infrastructure, designed only to move water from A to B, into clean, ecologically active, and community-integrated waterways. What was the problem it was solving? Singapore's concrete channels were doing their job of draining rainwater efficiently, but that efficiency came at a cost. The channels collected polluted runoff from roads, construction sites, and urban areas and delivered it straight into reservoirs. Flash flooding occurred because concrete provides no infiltration. Water rushes in one end and races out the other. The drains were ecological dead zones, no habitat, no biodiversity, fenced off and ignored. The ABC Water solution replaced hard concrete with living green infrastructure. Bioswales, planted banks, constructed wetlands, and rain gardens that slow the water, filter the pollutants, and restore the ecology of Singapore's waterways. Look at the 4 green infrastructure features on screen. These are the mechanisms behind the ABC Waters program, and you should be able to describe at least one of them in an exam answer. Bioswales are vegetated channels, essentially planted ditches, designed to slow and filter surface runoff before it enters the drain system. As water flows slowly through the bioswale, plant roots and the surrounding soil trap sediment, nutrients, and other pollutants. Clean, filtered water continues to the drain. The pollutants stay behind in the bioswale. Naturalized riverbanks replace concrete channel walls with planted, sloped banks. Instead of a vertical concrete wall, you have a gradual slope planted with grasses, shrubs, and water edge plants. Water can infiltrate the soil rather than rushing to the drain. The plants filter runoff and provide habitat for birds, insects, and fish. Constructed wetlands are shallow, planted water areas at the edges of reservoirs or parks. The wetland plants absorb excess nutrients from the water, essentially using biology to do the work that water treatment chemicals would otherwise do. Rain gardens are sunken garden beds that absorb and filter stormwater from roads and rooftops before it enters the drainage system. Common in parks and alongside roads, they are the smallest scale green infrastructure feature. For the exam, you need a named example. Look at the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park case study on screen. Completed in 2012, this project is the most significant implementation of the ABC Waters approach in Singapore. The straight, concrete-lined Kelang River, which ran through the middle of Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, was completely transformed. The concrete walls were removed and replaced with a 3-kilometer naturalized river with planted, sloped banks, constructed wetlands at the edges, and walking paths alongside. The results were dramatic. Water quality improved as runoff was filtered through the vegetation before reaching the river. Over 60 species of birds and animals returned to the restored ecosystem, a stretch of river that previously supported almost nothing. Peak flood levels in the surrounding area decreased because the naturalized channel slows water and allows infiltration rather than rushing it straight downstream. And the area became one of Singapore's most visited and loved urban parks. For the exam, write, the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park project, completed in 2012, naturalized the Kallang River, filtering runoff through planted banks, reducing flood risk, and increasing biodiversity from near zero to over 60 species. Now let's evaluate the ABC Waters program, because the Evaluate question asks for both strengths and limitations. Look at the two sections on screen. The strengths are significant. The program improves water quality by using bioswales and planted banks to filter nutrients and sediment before water reaches reservoirs. It reduces flood risk because naturalized channels slow runoff and allow infiltration, reducing peak water levels. It restores biodiversity. Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park is the headline example, going from near zero to 60+ species. And it builds community awareness and stewardship. When people use parks alongside clean waterways, they are more likely to appreciate and protect them. The limitations are also real. The program requires high upfront investment. Redesigning concrete infrastructure into naturalized waterways is expensive, and not every drain or canal in Singapore can be naturalized. The results are gradual. Vegetation-based filtration cannot instantly address a severe pollution event, a heavy construction runoff surge, or an industrial spill. Ongoing maintenance is required. Plants must be managed, replaced, and monitored. And fundamentally, the program addresses the pathway, not the source. Non-point source pollution still reaches the bioswales and wetlands. The infrastructure reduces and filters it, but does not eliminate the human behaviors that generate it. Chapter 4: Evaluate. This chapter brings together the point source and non-point source distinction, the full picture of Singapore's management strategies, and the 6-mark Evaluate structure. Let's build the Evaluate answer step by step. The core argument for the Evaluate question's limitation section is the point source versus non-point source contrast. Look at the two panels on screen. Point source pollution, factory pipes, sewage outlets, is easier to manage. You know which factory owns the pipe. A regulator can test the water quality at the pipe and compare it against the permitted standard. If the factory is violating the standard, the regulator knows who to fine. The source is identifiable. Compliance is measurable. The Singapore River cleanup of the 1977 to 1987 period was fundamentally a point source problem. Factories and pig farms, and it was solved through direct regulation and relocation. Non-point source pollution is the harder problem. The pollution comes from everywhere: roads, construction sites, agricultural fields, and millions of individual human behaviors. You cannot fine a rainstorm for washing oil off a road surface. You cannot monitor every centimeter of farmland. You cannot penalize a private homeowner for litter that blows from their garden into a drain. Managing non-point source pollution requires area-wide land use changes, major infrastructure investment in things like bioswales and constructed wetlands, and long-term shifts in public behavior, all of which are slower, more expensive, and never fully complete. This is the key reason that Singapore's water pollution management, despite its successes, still faces ongoing challenges. Non-point source pollution is the frontier of what has not yet been fully solved. Here is the full picture of Singapore's water pollution management strategies, which you need for the Evaluate question. Look at the table on screen. Industrial regulation targets point source industrial pollution. Factories are required to treat their wastewater before discharge. Pub monitors effluent quality and penalizes violations. Sewage treatment infrastructure targets domestic point source pollution, ensuring that sewage goes through treatment before any discharge into waterways. The ABC Waters program, launched by PUB in 2006, targets non-point source pollution from agricultural and domestic runoff through green infrastructure, bioswales, naturalized riverbanks, and constructed wetlands. Public education campaigns and fines for littering target domestic, non-point source pollution, the litter, oil, and detergents that wash off roads and car parks. Vegetated buffer strips, belts of vegetation alongside waterways, intercept agricultural runoff before it reaches the water body. For the evaluate question, you must describe at least 2 strategies, and ABC waters must be named. Choose your second strategy from industrial regulation or sewage treatment infrastructure. Now, the 6-mark evaluate scaffold. Look at the 6 boxes on screen. Mark 1. Describe at least 2 management strategies. Name each one and state what it does. ABC waters must be one of them. Marks 2 and 3 explain strengths with geographical reasoning and evidence. Why is each strategy effective, not just what it does? The key evidence is the Singapore River, from a biological dead zone in the 1970s to fish, birds, and recreation today. The regulatory approach is effective because point sources can be identified, monitored, and penalized. Compliance is directly measurable. Marks 4 and 5 explain limitations with geographical reasoning. Why does the strategy fall short? Non-point source pollution remains difficult. You cannot regulate a rainstorm. ABC waters filters but does not eliminate pollution. It requires ongoing maintenance and cannot respond instantly to severe events. Mark 6, final judgment. Take a clear position. Overall, are Singapore's strategies effective? Be specific, use the evidence. And the warning at the top right of the screen, description only equals a maximum of 2 marks. The other 4 marks are all in the why, the reasoning behind each strength and limitation, and the judgment. Your turn. Look at the final exam question on screen. Evaluate how effective Singapore's water pollution management strategies have been. Use the ABC Waters program as a named example. 6 marks. Use the scaffold, describe 2 strategies, explain strengths with evidence, explain limitations, reach a final judgment. 3 pieces of evidence to use: the Singapore River transformation from dead zone to living river, the ABC Waters program launched 2006 with bioswales and the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park 2012 example, and the non-point source limitation. You cannot fine a rainstorm. 12 to 15 minutes. Continuous prose, not bullet points. Pause now. When you are ready, unpause and I will walk through the model answer. Welcome back. Let's go through the 6-mark model answer. Look at the 4 sections on screen. Mark 1. Describe 2 strategies. Singapore uses strict industrial regulation, requiring factories to treat wastewater before discharge, and the ABC Waters program, launched in 2006, which installs bioswales and naturalized riverbanks to filter non-point source runoff. Named. Described. 1 mark. Marks 2 and 3. Strengths. The Straits. 1 committee sever. Strengths. The Singapore River, once a biological dead zone in the 1970s, now supports fish, birds, and water recreation, demonstrating the long-term impact of sustained regulation. Industrial regulation is particularly effective because point sources can be identified, monitored, and penalized. Compliance is directly measurable. 2 strength ideas. 2 marks. Marks 4 and 5. Limitations. However, non-point source pollution from construction sites, roads, and urban runoff is much harder to regulate. It comes from countless diffuse sources and cannot be monitored at source. The ABC Waters program addresses this through green infrastructure, but these measures filter rather than eliminate pollution and require ongoing maintenance and high upfront investment. 2 limitation ideas. 2 marks. Mark 6. Judgment. Overall, Singapore's water pollution management strategies have been highly effective at managing point source pollution and achieving dramatic waterway improvements. Non-point source pollution from urban runoff remains the harder long-term challenge, requiring continued investment and behavior change. Clear position. Specific reasoning. 1 mark. 6 marks. All 6 ideas explained with geographical reasoning. 4 mistakes, fixed before you sit the exam. Mistake 1. Confusing point and non-point source in WAQ1. Point source is one single, identifiable location, a factory pipe, a sewage outlet. Non-point source is many diffuse sources spread across an area, carried by surface runoff. These are opposite definitions. Know which is which. Mistake 2, writing only one step of eutrophication for a 3-mark question. 3 marks means 3 separate causal steps. Nutrients enter the water is 1 step. Algal bloom blocking sunlight is the 2nd. Bacteria decomposing dead matter and consuming oxygen is the 3rd. 1 step earns 1 mark. Write all 3. Mistake 3, the critical one, writing algae use up the oxygen. Algae produce oxygen when alive. BACTE. Consuming dead organic matter during decomposition are what depletes the oxygen. This costs a mark in WAQ2 every time. Write bacteria decompose dead algae. Consume dissolved oxygen, not algae use up oxygen. Mistake 4, naming a management strategy without explaining the mechanism in WAQ3 or the evaluate question. Singapore uses the ABC Waters program, earns mark 1. The 2nd mark requires bioswales slow and filter runoff, removing nutrients and sediment before they reach reservoirs. Always add how it works. 5 things to take away from this video. 1. Point source. Single identifiable location, easier to regulate. Non-point source, many diffuse sources, carried by runoff, harder to manage. 2. Eutrophication chain. Nutrients enter via runoff. Algal bloom blocks sunlight. Underwater plants die. Bacteria decompose dead matter, consuming dissolved oxygen. Oxygen drops. Fish die. Dead zone. 3. The bacteria misconception. Algae produce oxygen when alive. It is bacteria decomposing dead algae that cause the oxygen depletion. Write bacteria in mark 3-4. ABC Waters Program, 2006. Bioswales, naturalized riverbanks, constructed wetlands. Named example, Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, 2012, Kalang River, 60+ species returned. 5. Evaluate structure. Describe 2 strategies, explain strengths with evidence, explain limitations, final judgment. Description alone scores a maximum of 2 out of 6. Now, complete the cause-effect management table and the eutrophication worksheet before you attempt the WA practice. Subscribe for the next video, Tropical Rainforests.